I'm Ash, the founder of SupportRoom, and we're a support mechanism for people that are suffering from mental health issues. Today on our live, we've got Claude Springer. It's a massive pleasure to have him on our channel today. Claude, for those that don't know Claude, the true inspiration. He's a managing director of Meltwater, but he's actually an employee advocate of driving mental health and helping employees with well-being. He's done a fantastic job with his own employees, but also with the people around him as well. And for him to come on this session today, we're massively delighted. So thanks for joining us, Claude.
Thanks for the introduction. Quite the praise there, Ash. Don't know whether to blush or leave. But can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Perfect. Well, no, really happy to be here. Been following my support room from when it was an idea in a coffee shop about a year or two when we spoke, Ash. So yeah, thank you for having me, and looking forward to the discussion that we have today.
Today's session is going to be about Claude's experiences around kind of mental health in the workplace, but also, his personal experiences. Claude himself is an advocate of mental health, but also an advocate of ensuring that you're looking after your well-being as well. So we're going to cover lots of topics today. And, if you've got any questions, feel free to just add them in the comments and we can kind of cover them as we walk forward. Could be great for, the viewers and the community of SupportRoom to find out a little bit more about yourself. Why are you so ingrained in kind of the mental health topic, and why are you such an advocate of, the subject as well?
Such a broad overview question to start with. So I think I'll break it down in why am I so passionate or an advocate of mental health. So in the first thing, I think it's been something quite consistent in my life even before my career. And thinking I've grown up, been very passionate about my rugby at a younger age and those pressure situations. Had role models who are unachievable role models. I used to have a motto of striving for perfection, so it was a never-ending goal that I had, and understood the pressures that would bring. But then I also I think where it really came to the forefront for me is where my career developed, and when I started managing and supporting and being a leader within the organizations. I was very passionate about creating a team culture, and I think something that, and I know we'll touch on it when we talk about performance culture. And I think that every business wants to be successful, but that comes hand in hand with mental health. A high-performing person or individual who could be covering up and have mental health issues. Imagine if they're in an environment where they could openly communicate and speak freely. We're just scratching the surface of that individual's potential. So I think that's what drove it for me. It's just such a growing, vast subject. You see the strains of it day to day. And then you said an introduction about myself. So yeah, I'm not going to do the, hi, this is Claude Springer, this is my TED Talk. But yeah, so my name is Claude Springer. I'm the EMEA Managing Director for Meltwater at the moment. And been in the business, really fortunate to grow in the organization. I think what really is important for me, and I think everyone can resonate with this story, when you think about your career, you have various leaders and bosses that come into your life, and you take learnings from the good and the bad. And then that's really what I did for them when I became a leader. I really wanted to take learnings from my bad experiences and what I felt personally in those moments, and also take inspiration of some really good leaders and try and amalgamate myself into something which hopefully my team think is someone who's not doing a bad job.
Good, amazing, Claude. That was an amazing answer. But I think one of the things that you touched on earlier was, you're a keen kind of rugby player, and I know that you played rugby regularly. In sports in general, the awareness of mental health is growing, and there are lots of sports individuals out there that have been impacted by mental health and just haven't pretty much sat in silence for many years. But now they're coming out and just talking about, Johnny Wilkinson very recently came out and spoke about, mental health and how, leaving the sport kind of impacted him. what was the impact on yourself, or did you experience anything to do with mental health while you were playing or after you were playing?
Yeah, the Johnny Wilkinson, and I encourage anyone to listen to that. Someone who is at the top of his game. The High Performance Project, Johnny Wilkinson interview with Dan Walker. Is hugely insightful, and that's someone you wouldn't know, and that's a common thing with mental health. It's not something you see visibly sometimes. But for me personally, yeah, I think you touch on a subject which I think a couple of my workforce probably saw me go through. Yeah, I played a bit of rugby in the past. Perhaps say it's about time to hang up my boots. But I think something that really resonated with me and kind of scared me almost was when I got quite a big injury. Tore, everyone has that story, ACL, MCL, tore that. And I've always been that person playing in various different levels, but playing rugby was my compass. It was almost, I found it as my identity. And when that was taken away from me, not on my terms, and then my Saturdays weren't structured around getting up and going to play a sport. My Sunday wasn't recovering and moaning about how sore I was. My Monday wasn't then talking in the office about my highlight reel or lying about how many tries I got. And then it's training Tuesday. That really was a struggling point for me. And then you're going to get obsessed into new things. People try and tell me to take up golf, but it wasn't the same adrenaline rush for me. Yeah, it was definitely something that was an awakening for me, and I was probably being open and tolerable to be around in that time. I couldn't comprehend what defined me if I couldn't play with the boys on a Saturday.
No, I think many individuals that are kind of advocates of playing sports are, have either gone through it during pre-COVID. It's probably been even more difficult during this COVID period, being in lockdown, not being able to exercise, or that drive and that motivation to kind of go out and get that fresh air on the field, for example. That impact for individuals has been pretty big in terms of, it's fatigued individuals. It's had an impact on their well-being. It's had an impact on the relationships at home, their work. If what advice would you give those type of individuals that, are really kind of advocates of sports, but they can't really play sports at the moment? What else would you tell them to do?
One, reach out. I think people are going through this, and even from this talk today, I encourage anyone who's spending their Friday evenings listening to this. I'm an open door policy and love to talk to people in general and support. But yeah, I think I'd class it as this, and I've read a book about this, being like an endorphin junkie and being addicted to that feeling you have after training. And I think bringing structure into that challenge. We're quite fortunate, I'll be honest, if we're talking to the UK audience. I have friends who have come from different countries and had different levels of lockdowns, but we're in an environment where we can still just get outside, go on that run. I know it's perhaps not a similar level of endorphin release as playing on a Saturday or meeting with your mates in a big group and playing, but really recognize that you need that and think about ways and methodologies to do that. I think you even touched on another part about the impact on relationships and partners. I'd encourage you to speak and know yourself and be aware of your challenges and be able to communicate to that housemate, that loved one, that parent, whoever you're living with. Like, I know I have to train or I have issues. So these are the things that you need to know. If I haven't been to the gym yet, probably give me 5 minutes before you ask me to do the washing up or something like that. So it's communication, I think, is the key, and openness in understanding what you would need. And that may require analyzing yourself, and something that people may not be comfortable doing. I certainly am the best. I love analyzing other people, but when it comes to analyzing myself, it's something I'm very much shy away from. But being open, communicative, and recognizing that there are things that you can do in a microdose in the current climate. The 12th of April is soon coming, so Wade and gyms will be open soon.
Not long to go, Claude.
Yeah.
I think everyone on this IG Live can't wait for the lockdown to end or things to start opening up. If we kind of move to another subject now, and I think this is quite important for most, employees within organizations, you know, massively impacted by mental health. You know, we look at a lot of individuals today, they're working from home. You know, they live at home, they work from home. There's no kind of separation in, you know, there's no separation in what they're doing currently. Also, they're not taking days off because they're just working. I think on average, it's, you know, they're working 2.5 hours extra each day. Yeah. What would you advise employees to do? You know, there was an article about staycation, for example, very recently. You know, taking a break, switching off your mobile phone. What's your advice as a managing director?
I think that's a really good subject, and I'll probably break it down. One thing that you touched on was work during the pandemic and working from home and the increase in hours. And then the other thing in relation to breaks. So one of the things I think is hugely important, and I try and tell to my team, and I notice it, and I've read around it, is when there was no pandemic, there was an office that represented work. You then had your commute to break down and switch off from work. Then you entered your home and you're recharged. You've had your commute and you're feeling good, ready to do the cooking or ready to exercise and have that mental break. One of the huge challenges now is that you have your home, which was your safety net, almost then represents also your office. And that's where these blurred lines start to appear. And one of the biggest advice I can give is create an area or a space in your house, a corner, which represents that's your office. That is where I go to work. Because I've seen it, and I have colleagues, I won't talk about individual colleagues, but I've even done it where every room represents a place where you may work. Sometimes you may not have some Zooms that you need the camera on for, so you'll work from bed, and then you'll work in the kitchen, or then someone wants to go in the kitchen, so you'll work in the living room. And then mentally, you start to see that every room in your house represents office or work environment, and you're not able to physically switch off. So I really encourage people to have one area, space where it is, and that is my zone that represents office and work. When I step out of that zone, I am the contributing partner or friend or housemate to the community that is my home. So I really encourage that side of it there. And then you have to remind me on the second point that you said.
That's a good point. You got me there.
But yeah, I think
we'll blame that on the time of the evening.
Yeah, no, but no, I think it's definitely talking about the representation, but then also the increase in staycation was the other part. I'm like, how do you break?
Yeah.
So I'm someone who's perhaps, and my own boss will tell me himself, like, I didn't take enough days last year at all. And I very much struggle with, and it was a bad mentality to have, when like, what's the point in taking leave? I can't go anywhere. Why does going somewhere have to represent leave? And it really opens your mind that it's that time of switching off. I always talk about always being wired, always thinking about work. Having those breaks are important. And staycations, in my ignorance, I didn't comprehend them pre-pandemic. But you'll be proud to know I've got my staycation as of Monday for a week. But I think they're hugely important. And I think it's a mental shift in not seeing them as a waste, but taking that self-care as the best care, to coin a phrase which is often said in my team, and taking time away and breaking from work will add benefits. I guarantee you may not see it now, but when it comes to the slog of the dark autumn days and you reflect back on those moments that you took as time off, they'll hugely shape you and your happiness and well-being.
I totally agree with you. I think so many people are just working themselves to the ground at the moment, and then waking up in the morning and just thinking, I can't continue, or, you know, I can't think straight. They just feel totally burned out and fatigued. And I totally agree in terms of people just do need to take these days off and just say, well, enough's enough. You know, tomorrow I'm going to take 2 days off. I'm going to jump in my car and just go for a long drive. You know, anything, just go for a long walk, but leave your mobile phone at home. Turn everything off and just switch off from work. I think it's well needed. I know so many people that, sorry, go on.
No, and I think that's a good point. And I hope you won't mind me saying and calling you out on this, is even leaders have a part to do, where you were on staycation and you wanted to talk work in the shop for the past on your time off, and I just ignored you. I visibly didn't reply to you, and then I gave you an itemized list when you were back on Monday morning. So I think it's a responsibility of the team members, the leaders as well, when people are taking their staycations, because bad habits slip in. They'll be like, oh, I finished that Netflix documentary. Let me follow up on that case. So yeah, I think it's a team effort. And if there's anything that you learn from this pandemic and this society we live in, that it is a team effort in every interaction and way of life. And I hope that continues when things are back to whatever normal may be.
I think you just touched on something really important. It's a team effort. You know, I think in the workplace, we don't support each other enough. Or we try to support each other, but we go off into our own kind of worlds and our own little lives. But the focus should be, you know, peer-to-peer support across different teams, holding your colleague's hand, ensuring that you're speaking to them, and, you know, just taking time out to, you know, just let them express how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's important. And I don't think we talk enough. And what is your opinion on mental health in the workplace, but people talking more in the workplace? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that comes into the stigma. And I'll talk about modern day. Like, I think we as a society are doing better, recognizing it. There are initiatives at the government level or royal level, but the exciting thing is any good company just wants to always do more, wants to always be better, doesn't want to think it's a box ticking exercise that there is a healthcare system in place internally, but challenge themselves to evolve with the time. I think what is really important, and this comes into a balance, is creating an environment where perhaps on an individual basis people feel comfortable, but that's not always the case. Like, a leader or boss isn't going to be your best friend of the individual, and you want to share or communicate with that person about your troubles. But what really is important is a business allows clear avenues and access to information and support, whether it's through a third party or companies like yourself, or to the leader themselves. And I think that's something that is hugely important, and every business, small or large, should have aspirations, if not already, fitting to their size of organization, to ensure that there's clear access and a clear path and recognition of it. And that's what I mean by instilling there's an environment to make it acceptable and make everyone feel comfortable to talk about it as well. The really exceptional ones is where you have leaders who are at the forefront, openly discussing it, openly being communicative on the subject matter, but that doesn't necessarily going to be the case for all leaders. And that's why I just think it's an environment instilling, whether it's outsourcing or HR policies, knowing that the access of information is there. But I do have to, one anecdote, a little personal actually, I was talking to my father a bit about doing this today. He's hugely excited. He doesn't have Instagram, so he won't be joining. He probably didn't understand. He is good on Zoom, though. And he was talking about how mental health is hugely popular, and spoke about his own challenges. Being in an organization, working in the cities, he had a very successful career as a financial director, but he couldn't fathom saying, hey, can I come in a bit later so I can take my son to school this morning? Or can I leave work a little bit earlier? Or I'm really strained with having 3 kids growing up at the same age and having their sporting commitments and having that work-life balance, or being able to work from home. So I definitely think we have come some way, but I really think we're in a society now where there's true inspiration in wanting to do more. And if we can hold on to the reins of that and keep going, that's going to be a really great environment to work in. And I really think it relates to productivity and performance. Gone are the days you need to be chained to your desk to get the best results.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I wanted to ask you a question about training, actually. We can go on to what else can be done within organizations. That'll be the second phase of this. But if we look at employees today, they're scared to express how they're feeling with their managers. Am I going to be put on a performance review? Am I going to be fired for telling my manager how I'm feeling? Now, this is not an issue in one company. This is an issue across the UK. And this is probably one of the reasons why the UK and other countries are impacted so heavily economically, yeah, by mental health, because they can't express their opinions and they don't get the right level of support. They end up taking days off, or they're not efficient. Now, do you feel that managers, I think the stat actually, Claude, is about 11% of managers in the UK have actually had training on mental health. Now, you're great at this because you're very much a people's person and you manage your employees fantastically well. But do you feel like training should be implemented across all organizations? And you can answer no if you think if you don't agree with it.
Well, luckily I do. I think there are two topics I'd like to raise on this. I think, firstly, to answer your question, should training? Absolutely. We're trained what to do in a fire drill, and everyone has their fire exit training on first day, and you have that coordinator within there. Training on mental health and the well-being of staff is paramount. And there are businesses, as you said, like in general, who perhaps don't invest enough in that, and that then creates that stigma. And also, I think it's in a fairness of trying to empower the leaders and give them the resources to know what to do in situations, because it's a responsibility when you become a leader in such things. And being able to feel well equipped is not just about the individual going through the problem stepping forward, but it's also the leader knowing how to support that, what resources are available, how they can manage or coach that individual, what their responsibility of duty of care is, and things like that. So yes, training is hugely important. And then I think you registered another point about managers in general. And I can't help but think about the boss versus a leader kind of thing. I know we've discussed it before, but a leader is someone who talks about we, extends a hand, really grooms and nurtures and creates that environment where that boss is I, commanding, not really extending a hand, dictatorial, stuff like that. And that's where I think you've really got to strive in those future CEOs picking their future leaders and making decisions on who to promote. Don't just worry about the performance, but look at the character of the individual as well, and seeing if they are inspiring and caring and people orientated, because that's what instills good cultures and ways of working for an environment for people to feel comfortable as well.
I think you do it really well, to be fair. And, we can all do better, but I also do agree that more training is definitely required across, all organizations. You have first aiders, managers should be trained in the same way. So I agree with that. If we look at support now across, an organization, and we kind of look at what organizations currently do. So they'll have well-being coaches, which do a fantastic job. They'll come in and do a session to a sales team, for example, or to a marketing team. Then you have you have apps around well-being, or you have an EAP solution. The fundamental issue is it's not giving employees support when they need it. Yeah. Now, what do you think, from a managing director's experience, what do you think organizations need? And you don't have to say SupportRoom here, but what do you think they need in terms of providing their employees with the right level of support? And that could just be, managers, training, whatever it is. What's your take on this?
There are two layers to it. So one, I think, yes, management training is key. Secondly, perhaps outsourcing it and having those, because you raise a good point, and you can't tell people not to have that fear, but people not wanting to raise it to colleagues or HR or anyone, people who are associated with the business, and worried that there are repercussions of such actions. So then even having those third party, or some people have it through their work healthcare. A lot of people don't know about that. Typically your healthcare package of work will have a well-being funding or budget allocation towards that. So I think to summarize what you said, so education and coaching of staff, perhaps I think, so depending on the scale of the organization, outsourcing third-party tools, companies like yourself, not just as that, but like yourself, being able to be available and a resource to perhaps remove that stigma of people not wanting to raise it to members of staff. And then thirdly, as I said, communication, clear availability of resources, whether that's in CRM, that's kickoff workshops, whatever the company may have. Easy access to information is what's important, and confidential as well.
Yeah, of course. And I think the great thing here is that there are two sides to this. There are some organizations that are really just doing the tick box exercise.
Yeah.
And to drive the right level of support, it's not really good enough. But there are some organizations that are doing amazing things for their employees. And if an organization really wants their work, actually take two steps backwards. If an organization really wants their workforce to perform well, they need to ensure that their employees are happy. And that is the biggest thing. You know, if we went back 5 years, you know, managers would be cracking the whip. Why haven't you hit your target? Why haven't you done this? But actually, there needs to be a shift. And that shift needs to be about, you know, how are you feeling at work? You know, if you're feeling good at work, you're going to come to work. And if you come to work, you're going to be efficient and you're going to be performing at work. And another thing is now with organizations, they've got to think about retaining staff as well, which is really important in my view. You know, in order to retain staff, they've got to be happy at work. They've got to enjoy their job. They've got to enjoy the way their work-life balance is, for example. So I think in the next year, there's going to be a lot of shift and a lot of changes. And I think, and I don't know if you agree with me here, but a lot of the shift and the changes are not coming from right at the top of organizations. They're actually coming from the employees. You know, I see that across many organizations where, you know, the 18s to 30s, for example, are driving change within the organization, which is amazing to see. And as they drive change, you know, leaders are looking at those changes, thinking, actually, it is making a difference.
I can agree more. I think you touched on a couple points, and it shouldn't be a surprise that the employees or the 18 to 30s and the staff are driving the change. Any good leader would be the first to say, I am not the company, but my team represents the identity which we instill. And so it's right that the individuals and the employees, it shouldn't be a revolution. It's you guys are shaping what this company represents. And I think the part on performance is spot on. And I think this is what I was saying a bit earlier about performance and mental health come hand in hand. And there may be people sat here listening to this saying, I have a team and I haven't cared for their mental health. And I know he's a top performer. But then I'll say, okay, but then imagine if there were issues, and imagine if you did challenge yourself to support that. There's another 10, 20, 30% in performance that could happen in that person. A happy member of staff is always going to be a better performing one. It happens in them internally being inspiring or externally when they're representing your company. So I think that's huge, like to really understand that it comes hand in hand, both performance and mental health, and recognizing the importance. And the important one of that is mental health, not performance. And I think that emphasis is really what the differentiator should be. A good performance is a consequence of the investment of in your staff.
We touched on something earlier. It was around support, okay? And what I mean by that is we keep discussing how organizations should drive change, managers or leaders should drive change. And then we just touched on employees driving change. But actually, it should be a group effort. It should be everybody driving change across the organization, everyone creating a network of support. Now, how does an organization, in your view, and I'm putting you on the spot here, sorry, Claude, but how do you feel like they create a network of support? And we could call that a community of support, which is probably a better word for it.
That's exactly what I said about fostering the community and the culture. And yeah, it is a group effort. And I think it's important to say that it doesn't all lie on the company themselves as well. And working in companies where you can come with fresh ideas, challenge the company. The company should want to evolve and challenge your leader, challenge your teammate. That's definitely going to be the way forward. And it is fostering a culture and a community and that sense of identity. And that's what people then get proud of, and really enjoy saying they work for X company, my company being Meltwater, because they're proud of what it represents and they're a part of that representation. So a group effort, to quote an old CEO, he reflected to a business as a rowing machine, as a rowing with an 8-man, everyone rowing in the same direction is only going to make the ship sail smoothly. So it is a team effort. Leaders, yeah, they're the ones who can enact change, but so the individuals are just as important. It's a group effort.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone needs to be moving in the same direction. And I think that's going to come in time. I think employees are probably supporting each other a lot more, especially during lockdown, and as soon as lockdown comes to them, we're approaching the summer, which is going to be great because people are going to be out. And I presume everyone on this session is looking forward to the summer. But what do you think the future looks like in terms of organizations? Do you think things are going to get better, or do you think things are going to just stay the same for a while in terms of the approach?
I'm not Mystic Meg, so I can't predict that. Yeah. But what I can vow is what's in my control, and I can control that. I am committed for the rest of my career to wanting to evolve, change, move with the trends, but also recognize and come to every interaction with humility and wanting to understand and learn from my teammates and learn about new initiatives to bring forward into the organization. A lot of the things that I try and do, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of friends who are really successful in their own roles, in their own organizations. And I'm always talking to them about fresh ideas. And I think sometimes my company thinks the ideas have come from me. They haven't, but it's talking to people and seeing what that company does. I think that'd be great to bring in here. So I can't predict the future. All I can say is I hope. I do hope that there are learnings taken from lockdown. I know whatever I'm able to do within my power, I will always commit to doing, and putting the welfare of my team members at the forefront of any business decision, as well as respecting the P&L.
I like the way you just brought that in there. So with lockdown, fast approaching its end, and a lot of people getting vaccinated now, people are going to start going back to work. Yeah, may be going back to the office. Some organizations might be the back end of this year. Some organizations may, close their offices down. Now, for those that do have to go back to work and they've been working at home for so long, it might be quite scary to go back into the office with so many people. And it could be very difficult to kind of adapt to that new environment. What would you advise, employees to do, that those employees that have to go back into the office? How do you think they should take it? Steps? What steps would you kind of recommend?
Well, judging from my own experiences at working in the office, I'm sure, I think what you're talking about is like anxiety, right?
Exactly.
I was even made a joke, and I probably wasn't joking, when I was talking about pubs being open again and then seeing more than 6 people. I was like, yeah. But I just think this comes back to the very beginning. Like, there's not a one-size-fits-all model, especially with mental health at all. And I think it's communicating with each team member. What every organization may have a different back-to-work strategy, but I do think for me and my organization, there are some huge benefits in having people back, and I've got a team who are really excited to be coming back to the office. Whether it's 5 days a week every time and it's straight away you rip the band-aid off and back to it, no, I think it's definitely going to have to be change and comfortability of people traveling and commuting in and that environment. But the crux of it is, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all, and anyone I would encourage to speak to their leaders, their company, if it is a daunting thing, because I very much could understand that, and talking about a roadmap that fits you and creates an environment where you can be most successful.
It's a good thing as well, because being back in the office, you're around people, you separate your work and your home life. So when you
Yeah,
come home, you feel like you're at home,
yeah,
rather than feeling like your desk is in the middle of, a bit like me, in the middle of your living room.
yeah,
But at the same time, you know, it's about, you start communicating with people, you know, outside of just your partner, for example, which, you know, it's great. And I think that's, a lot of people will actually be glad to be going back to the offices. I've had a lot of people just, you know, tell me that, you know, we can't wait to go back. You know, we really want to be in that environment again. You know, we want to be going out after work, for example. You know, we want to be seeing our friends, because a lot of your work colleagues are your good friends as well.
yeah. No, totally. I think it's quite a set. Like if you think about the average working hour day is 8 hours a day, right? A week. Then it's increased during the pandemic. People are working 10-hour, 11-hour days. Like you're looking at nearly over 30%, over 33, maybe into 40% of your working hours in the day are with colleagues. Now, what's the end reward of it is, and it's building those social relationships and skills, and there's doing those big projects, and then going out after work and things like that. So yeah, it's hugely exciting. But I think, yeah, there's going to be an abundance of people who can't wait to get back to work, and I'm one of those who's really excited to be back in office and see teammates not over a Zoom all the time. But you have to recognise there are perhaps some people who may struggle with that concept, and hopefully they can communicate to their organisation to work out something right.
Exactly. Everyone that's on this stream, if you've got any questions, please add them in the comments, and we can discuss them. You know, we can have a discussion about them. Please put the comments in there. So Claude, another question for you actually, and this is quite important. With employees today, a lot of them suffer in silence, but a lot of them want to reach out to their leader, or they want to just reach out to somebody within the organization to say, I'm under immense stress. You know, my anxiety levels are really high where I don't feel like coming to work. And that could be because they're not hitting their targets, or they've just got too much of a workload. What would you advise those employees, you know, as a leader of organization?
The employee or the leader in that situation?
The employee.
Again, I would very much hope that there is an environment which allows you to feel open and speak. I would encourage never ever to suffer in silence, to coin a phrase my mother always used to say to me and my brothers: a problem shared is a problem halved. I believe that's the right expression of it. I'm sure if my brother's online, he'll quote me. But yeah, I think it's really important to feel like you can talk. But that may not be a case that every company has that environment or a boss or someone there. So I would encourage you to talk to people outside of the company, because there may be ways of just being able to communicate it, maybe through seeing a therapist, for example, will help. And it will create or help you unpack what you see as pressures. And actually, by talking to someone in that environment, maybe outside of work, then you can come back to it with much more gravitas or motivation. So firstly, I would hope that there's an environment at work to speak. And that's where the companies and the leaders within that hopefully create that culture and community. But also, I don't think necessarily that if they can't speak to their boss about it, that doesn't mean they can't get help. Outsourcing it and getting help through companies like yours. Honestly, I know and speak from experience with people like this, where just speaking to someone totally removed from it and just giving it oxygen has helped them and change their way of thinking and approach to things. I see we've got quite a few questions popping up.
We have. So we've got a question here. So how do you both transition out of your work day when working from home? Claude, I'll let you take that one, and then I can also answer it.
Yeah, so I always say this, and it's like, and I can resonate totally with whoever said that about, and I would call it like being wired, like just always on, always thinking about work. So a couple of tactics that I've tried to do is a small thing for me, but and not all organizations have that. But I always, and it's clear for me, I have a work phone and a personal phone. And I'm very clear to people, you want to talk to me about work, contact me on my work phone. Because then I can physically put my work phone away at the end of the day. Whereas your personal phone is always going to stay on you. Now that probably doesn't fit with a couple companies where they want to put an app on your phone and then it's one device within there. But then another thing I think we touched on at the very beginning was having a place at home which represents where you're working. I really think that is key, especially in these last kind of stint that we do, so that you know when you physically have got up for the day, that corner of my bedroom or that corner of the living room, that is when I am actual Claude in work mode. When I get up and step out and walk to the kitchen or just walk into my bedroom, that is not a representation of my work. So within there as well, something else I encourage, and this isn't me, it was my own CEO actually said this about if you have meetings which don't require you being in front of the screen, and you can do it like on the phone, plug in, do the meeting and walk. Go on a walk, get outside. I don't do it enough. I spoke to my boss today who said it was the sunniest day he's seen, wanted to get outside. But if it's a sparring session or a team meeting where you don't need to be in front of the camera at the desk, get out, plug in and get out. But also I think I also like, for me personally, as well as the training side, which we spoke about. So having that clear break to mentally shift at the end of the day, I finish, I'm an evening runner. So then I'll go on my run. That's me breaking down and getting ready to enjoy my evening. But it is hard. And that's something I really want to say. Like, it is hugely hard, but those are the tips I have within there. And hopefully as well, call people out. If someone's WhatsApping you about work at 8 o'clock, Ash, at midnight, tell them, like, I'm watching the football, or I'm not talking about work, and eventually they'll start to understand to respect those time barriers.
Yeah, I think I've had to learn how to do that with you, Claude. Especially the way I work. No, you know, I think Claude knows I'm pretty much a workaholic, but at the same time, you know, I said to Claude a couple of weeks ago, I said, I feel completely burnt out. And, you know, I had to take, you know, a few days off to relax. They did turn a little bit worky during those days. But at the same time, that, you know, I realized that actually I need to start doing more exercise. Yeah. And really kind of breaking up my days where at 12 o'clock, I do 20 minutes of exercise and then I have some lunch. But recently, something that's really helped me kind of switch off from work is at 6 o'clock, my stress levels are high. I'm tired. I feel fatigued. I actually started doing some meditation. Yeah. And honestly, it's been amazing, where my wife's probably looking at me going, what are you doing? But at the same time, it's brought my stress levels right down, where, you know, 30 minutes of just doing that meditation makes me feel good. And that enables me to really switch off from everything around me in terms of work and really kind of focus on something completely different.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like encouraging people to try new things. In this lockdown, I've listened to more podcasts than I've ever listened to in the years prior to the pandemic. Exploring a lot more self-awareness, things like that. And yeah, I think, as you said, meditation, those few things, just to create new, interesting hobbies and ways to decompress.
Good. I want to touch on technology a little bit. And this is more to do with mental health now. You know, there's lots of technology out there that's really supporting the cause. It's really taking things through, you know, a transformation in terms of making it more accessible, and it's providing more support. And that could be an app around, you know, your sleeping patterns, for example, or just happiness. You know, you've got companies like Calm and Unmind that do amazing things as well for employees. Do you feel like technology is now needed to drive more support within, you know, workforces?
Hugely. And I think, and I know we're laboring quite about technology and the richness of using technology to bring these applications to the forefront. creates exactly what the problem is the barrier to information, the barrier to access or support. By bringing in technology and using applications and meditation exercise, and knowing that you can have, like your company's support room, someone on the end of the phone through an application and booking like that, it's all about getting to those people quicker. And that is what the evolution of technology is all about. And this is one of the sides where it's hugely beneficial and exciting to see that availability of information, but that availability of support, easily accessible from your own home, from your mobile device, from a WhatsApp as well. So it's paramount. And this is where technology is used in the right way to bring things like this forward.
I think the fundamental thing here is when you're using technology within organizations to provide more support around mental health, it's all geared towards protecting the employee. And as long as you're protecting the employee and ensuring that they can speak to somebody in private without that information being shared across the organization, I think technology is going to really drive change. Yeah. And I think for companies in general, technology is also going to drive change as well, because it's going to improve and transform, the happiness of the employees, which is going to be important. But Claude, it's been a pleasure today. You've been amazing. I think a lot of people on this session today have probably taken a lot from what you've said and will adapt that into either their leadership role, or they'll adapt that within their working life in terms of, breaking up the days, trying to switch yourself off from work. Guys, take days off when you need them. Don't overwork yourself, because that's just going to drive you, just going to burn you out. But Claude, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for those who joined. Look, I think a huge part of this, and it wouldn't be fitting if I'm talking about communication and openness, like anyone who's on this and having challenges in their organization, or future leaders and thinking about that, or individuals, feel free to add me on LinkedIn within this, add me on Instagram. I know, just not a plug, but honestly, really proud to see the work that Ash and the team at My Support Room are doing. Hugely using technology in the right way. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And hopefully you'll invite me back one day and we can talk more, Ash. But thank you so much, and thank you everyone who spent their Friday evening with us.
Good. Thank you for everyone joining us.
Take care.
See you later.